To the Unitarian Universalist Church of Palo Alto, where we come to transform ourselves, each other, and the world. We are gathering on the unceded land of the Ramaytush and Tamyan people. We are grateful for the care of the land that their past and present generations have given. And we pledge to them and their future descendants our solidarity whenever they request it. You are welcome to keep your video on throughout the service. It's nice to see each other's faces if you're comfortable with that. We will mostly keep our audio off, but let's all unmute right now for a few moments to hear one another give greetings. Hello. Hello. Hello, hello. It is nice to see so many faces. Yes, we're all here. We're just scattered a little farther than usual. Wonderful. You can see the order of service by following the link in the chat. Lots of stuff going on. There's a call for auction donations that would be really helpful. I know that for a lot of people, this has been a time of clearing out, reassessing, thinking about your space. So you may well have some things that you would like to donate. Have a look at that link. And also, there's a workshop I'm doing this afternoon I hope you'll have a look at, and lots of other stuff going on today and all week. So don't neglect to do that before you go. And now, let us begin our service. If you have a chalice there with you, please light it along with me. For this 1 hour, Spirit of Life, we let go. For this 1 hour. May we let go of our anxieties, our fears, our anger, our self-doubt, our regrets, our petty grievances, and our distractions. If only for this 1 hour, let the flame of this chalice burn them from our hearts and minds and light our way to peace and serenity for this one holy hour. With our centering words each week, we draw on the many sources of our living tradition. Today's words are from the U.S. American Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. Prayer cannot bring water to parched fields, or mend a broken bridge, or rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, and rebuild a weakened will. As we follow the sound of the bell into silence, let us become centered and fully present as we gather together. Now let's join in as Bruce leads us in singing Down in the Valley.
old way, when you shall wear the starry crown. Good Lord, show me the way. Oh, mourner, let's go down, let's go down, let's go down. Oh, mourner, let's go down, down in the valley to pray. As I went down in the valley to pray, studying about the good old way, when you shall wear the starry crown. Good Lord, show me the way. Oh, children, let's go down, let's go down, let's go down. Oh, children, let's go down, down in the valley to pray. As I went down in the valley to pray, studying about the good old way, when you shall wear the starry crown. Good Lord, show me the way. By and by we'll all go down, all go down, all go down. By and by we'll all go down, down in the valley to pray. As I went down in the valley to pray, studying about the good old way, when you shall wear the starry crown. Good Lord, show me the way.
I have a story for you this morning, a story that takes place long ago in a Jewish community in Spain. One Sabbath, Shabbat, the rabbi told the congregation about the passage in the Bible that tells about how each week the people would offer God a gift of 12 loaves of bread, 12 for the 12 tribes of Israel. The best bakers would make their best loaves and bring them to the temple, and they would be placed in the ark, which in this case does not mean a boat, but the special cabinet meant to hold the scrolls of the Torah, the Holy of Holies, the holiest place in the gathering place. That's where the bread would go every week. Now, on the day that the rabbi told this story, Jacob and Esperanza were in the congregation, and they, as it happened, ran a wonderful bakery in the town. Jacob and Esperanza were honest, good, kind people, but they didn't always pay attention to every word the rabbi said. Imagine. If you want to know the truth, they mostly listened to his stories. So as they were going home and talking about the service, mostly what they remembered was the story of those 12 wonderful loaves of bread going into the Holy Ark. They weren't, frankly, that sure about God. They had a lot of questions, but they loved the idea that this was a kind of service that they could do, that they could use their baking talents and share them this way in their synagogue. So the next day, after Shabbat was over, Jacob and Esperanza baked extra challah, and when the bread had cooled, Esperanza put 12 delicious loaves in a big flour sack and took them to the synagogue. She went the back way and slipped in a side door and entered the cool, dark sanctuary where there was no one else but her. Esperanza said, "Señor Dios, I brought you the bread you love." And she took the loaves out of the flour sack and she placed them in a nice, neat pile among the Torah scrolls right there in the ark and closed the ark up again. And then she slipped out of the side door and returned to the bakery to her work. Now, no sooner had she left than the synagogue's custodian, Pablo, entered the sanctuary to clean up. Now, Pablo, unlike Jacob and Esperanza, never had any doubts about God. But as he came to work that day, his heart was heavy. His family was so poor and they were hungry. He was hungry. They didn't have enough food to make it through the week. So as Pablo made his way with his broom and his dust mop up through the sanctuary, he was praying. He was saying, Señor Dios, please help me feed my family. I don't know what else I'm going to do. And then suddenly, as if in answer, he smelled this tantalizing smell, one of the best smells in the world, freshly baked bread. At first, he thought, I'm so hungry, I'm hallucinating about food. But as he got closer to the Holy Ark, the smell got stronger and stronger until when he was right up next to the Ark, sweeping and mopping, he felt like he was right next to a table that had fresh loaves on it. He couldn't help himself. He opened up the Ark, and there, to his complete amazement, were 12 fresh loaves of bread. Amazing. This was enough to feed his family for days. Gracias, Señor. Gracias, he said. And he took up his apron and he put all the loaves in it. He could not wait to get home and show his family what he had. And it fed them for several days. When Shabbat services came around at the end of the week, Jacob and Esperanza could not wait to get there. They came early. They sat in the front row because they wanted to see what would happen when the rabbi opened up the ark for the reading of the Torah. And you can imagine how astonished they were and how delighted when the rabbi opened the ark and there were only Torah scrolls there. Not a crumb remained of the bread that they had baked. Dios mío, how wonderful! You do like bread, they thought. And all the way home, they talked about this amazing thing that had happened and resolved they were going to bake the bread and bring it again. So as soon as the Sabbath had ended, Esperanza and Jacob were back in the bakery making more challah. They put extra care into the task and made the best loaves of their lives. They were beautiful. They smelled marvelous. And again, as soon as the bread was cool enough, Esperanza loaded the 12 best loaves into her flour sack and sneaked in the back way to the synagogue and left them there in the ark. And again, soon afterwards, Pablo came in. He hardly dared to hope for another miracle. But as he swept and prayed, he was sure he could smell that wonderful aroma of bread once again. Was he just thinking about how wonderful it had been the week before? No, he opened up the ark and there it was. Gracias, Señor, gracias. And he fed his family for another week. And as the weeks went on, and Jacob and Esperanza saw that Señor Dios was pleased with their gift, they kept offering it. And as Pablo was eating a little better, he cleaned better, and he had the energy to add a couple more jobs, so his family was doing better. Also, his kids were eating better, and so they did better in school. Everything was so much happier and healthier and safer in his family. And so the arrangement continued, week after week, for 10 years. Pablo's kids grew up, and they were doing well. And he thought he didn't need so many loaves now that the family was doing better. So he decided he'd ask the rabbi if it would be okay to share Señor Dios's gift of bread with another poor family. He didn't want to offend God when the bread was right there in his workplace, but he thought, somebody can use this more than I can. Well, 10 years had gone by, and the rabbi did not even remember telling this ancient story to the people of the synagogue. So he was mightily perplexed. Gift of bread? What are you talking about, Pablo? Pablo explained that in answer to his prayers, Señor Dios had been providing miraculous sustenance, 12 loaves of bread every week for 10 years in the ark, and that his family had been eating them with such gratitude. But in the Holy Ark, the rabbi just sputtered. That's preposterous. But Pablo swore it was true. And so the day after the Sabbath found the rabbi and Pablo hiding in the sanctuary when Esperanza came in with her loaves. They watched in astonishment as she pulled them out of her flour sack and opened the ark and put 12 loaves inside right among the Torah scrolls. The rabbi jumped up and said, "Esperanza, stop! What do you think you're doing?" Esperanza was startled, of course. But she said, "Rabbi, I'm just doing what you said in that story you told years and years ago about the bread and the ark. Jacob and I have been baking bread for God for 10 years now, and he must be enjoying it because each week he eats every crumb." "How could you be so silly?" the rabbi sputtered. "God doesn't eat food the way people do. For 10 years, you've been leaving the bread in the ark, yes, and for 10 years, Pablo has been getting the bread out of the ark and taking it home to his family." Pablo and Esperanza stood and looked at each other, and they saw the truth dawning in the other person's eyes. The rabbi was uncharacteristically struck silent as he looked back and forth between them. Pablo spoke first. "I needed food, and it was provided to me. My family was pulled from the brink of disaster. We were in desperate straits, and now we're doing pretty well thanks to this bread. It was by any account a miracle." And then Esperanza spoke. "Jacob and I needed to feel like we made a difference, like we served a larger purpose, and we did. And maybe God didn't eat the bread, but still, it really was a miracle." Slowly, a smile began to spread among the three people. And the rabbi said, "Truly a great miracle has happened here. Because whenever human hands perform a righteous service, something special happens, something sacred happens. We may never see the hands of God, but we can see the good works of human hands. And that, my friends, is miracle enough." We now turn our thoughts to the important events of our lives, which we wish this community to share. If you have a joy or a sorrow you would like me to speak this morning, please send your joys and sorrows to joyconcern@uucpa.org or post them in the chat. The box that's provided by Zoom, you can open up chat there, and I will share them aloud. Just make sure I've got my email open. So grateful for all the tech support here. The folks who put screens here, Byron Brown and Brian Weller worked so hard on that. The folks who are making sure that the chat is up there so I can read it. And John Wright, who's lent me his laptop as a backup. We've got everything we need here. I do now want to light a candle. For the life of Nancy Westerfield. Was a part of this congregation for more than 20 years, such a dear friend, the creator of the Baby Cafe and Get Better Bistro for several years. So for many of you may have gotten help coordinated by Nancy, even if you didn't know it. And so many other ways that she was a friend here. So our hearts are very much with her dear friends in this congregation, with her children, Kiri and Louis and Zoe, and their children, her grandsons, who are absolutely the loves of her life. Let us now take a few moments of silent prayer or meditation to hold what we've heard, especially the sorrows we hold in compassion and care, the joys we hold knowing that joys are sweeter when shared. And for all of it, we are grateful to be part of one another's lives. Blessed be. Now let's join in as Bruce leads us in singing Open My Heart. Our reading today is from Mohandas K. Gandhi, from a compilation of things he wrote and said about prayer called On Prayer. Prayer is not an asking. It is a longing of the soul. It is a daily admission of one's weakness. Prayer is nothing else but an intense longing of the heart. You may express yourself through the lips. You may express yourself in the private closet or in public, but to be genuine, the expression must come from the deepest recesses of the heart. We have a sung prayer to hear, the anthem from two wonderful sopranos.
No
I'm changing some of the details to protect this person's privacy, but I want to tell you the story of somebody I know who was a person of deep faith in a God who loved her, loved us all, and would intervene in human affairs to help us. She prayed to this God as her family did and drew much strength from those prayers. And then her beloved older brother got very sick, and her prayers intensified. Please make him well. She prayed, the family prayed, they gave him all the care that they could, they got him the best medical care that they could, but he got sicker, and her prayers became more desperate. Please, please, he's a good person and he's so young. He mustn't die now. But her brother died. And on top of the tremendous burden of grief that fell upon her, came also a crisis of faith, a crisis of her worldview. Because up until then, she'd thought of the world as a place where prayer would help, would fix something like this, where good people who prayed sincerely would not hear no answer from their God, or worse, hear the answer, no, I'm not going to help. So prayer was cast into doubt. God was cast into doubt. At the suggestion of our Committee on Ministry, I'm giving several sermons over the course of, on and off over the course of the next few months, on different parts of the service and why we do what we do. And I thought I'd jump right into one of the thorniest theological problems embedded in our service, which is right there in the ritual that we call caring and sharing, that many congregations, communities of faith call pastoral prayers or the prayers of the people. Especially that part when we have shared and then we have this silent time of, as I invite you, prayer or meditation. This is a hard question for people like my friend and many people gathered here. What does that time even mean? To whom are we praying? And what do we expect to happen? And what are we to make of the fact that sometimes the things that we pray for don't happen at all? The writer Annie Lamott says, oversimplifying a bit, but we'll give her poetic license, that there are really just three kinds of prayer that we all need to know about. They can be summed up in 3 words. Wow. Thanks. And help. Now, wow, I think, comes pretty easily to us no matter what our theology. I mean, we look around this beautiful world, we look at the workings of our own bodies and the trees and the sky, and we say, wow. And it doesn't really matter to us whether anybody is listening. We're just amazed, and sometimes it just bursts out of us, aloud or in song or just privately in our own hearts. Wow. Thanks is a little more complicated. Thanks are usually, directed to somebody, and if we don't know that there's any body, any being behind the wonders for which we're thankful, it may sound a little strange to say thank you for the trees and the sky, and thank you for my return to health. Well, what does that even mean? But many of us wish to just practice gratitude, and so we don't worry too much about who might be actually listening and whom we're thanking or what we're thanking. But then help. Help is a tough one. The prayer help presupposes a response, a hope of a response, right? Someone is listening who could conceivably want to help us. And so what do we do if we're not sure if there is any such person. If, like my friend, we were sure, and yet this being has let us down. We don't want to be so callous as to look around the world and say, well, the people who have good fortune and are healthy and happy and they have their families and their relationships are good, they have enough to eat and all of that, they must pray well, or they must be good people. This world is just because somebody is in charge and answering prayers. No, really, any kind of look around the world tells us that's not the way it works. Some prayers are going unanswered that we can't imagine why that would be if there were anybody who loved us who could answer them. There are lots of theological answers to that, some more convincing perhaps to you than others. But that's not actually where I want to go today. I want to think about an assumption that I think most of us have here, regardless of our theology, if we're Unitarian Universalists, even if we're Christians, even if we pray to God, that we don't think of prayer as like a magic wish. We don't think of God as a great big genie, the biggest genie of them all, who will meet all of our needs and answer all of our prayers as we might wish. So the question remains, is there any reason to say, in the middle of our service, help, on our own behalf or on behalf of the people around us, behalf of those we love? So I'd like to ask for a moment, if you're comfortable sharing, because I realize this is a very personal and intimate matter. So only if you want to share, would you post in the chat, what do you do during that silent time of caring and sharing? How do you use that time when I invite prayer or meditation? And I'll share it aloud for those for whom that's a better way to hear it. Any thoughts? Pamela sure gets way ahead of the question I was going to ask next and say she doesn't know what to do with herself. I was going to ask, and maybe you can all put it on gallery view for a moment so you can see the response. People could wave or click the little electronic hand. If you kind of do nothing but wait for the silence to be over. Oh, thank you. Tim is changing it for me too, so I can see how many people say yes to that. That's okay. I'm seeing some hands up. You don't know what to do. Okay, Pamela, you are not alone. What else do people do? Oh, I see a few new responses there. Can I see what's in the chat? Can you scroll down the chat for me, Tim? You've got a few new messages. Oh, people are popping up. Barbara Smith-Thomas feels her connection with the people around her. Isa is thinking of all the people in a tough spot. It's the people who shared concerns that are particularly hard to reach out to, right? Joys are, of course, we share our joys. But I saw Carl or Karen shared something before. Edie sends mental good wishes to those who come to her mind, who are in need. Ed reflects on what's been said, sends loving thoughts. Kathy says she tries to feel compassion, so we have a lot of that. Theta says she prays, which is to think about what's been said and send out meditation and good thoughts. I think I might have missed some, but thank you so much, everybody, for sharing these. Carry on. Michelle says she believes in prayer, so it's a quiet space to remember and make a choice for prayer or feel a sense of unity. Drew says he phrases his quote-unquote prayer as may so-and-so be well. So much. Oh, lovely, lovely. Thank you. So, and carry on sharing that with each other as you wish. Maybe that gives those of you who sit and wonder something that you can do with that time. But let's see if we can help a little bit more about that. I think whether we started out like my friend with having a fairly simple view of if I ask for this sincerely and I'm basically a good person, God will answer my prayers. Whether we started there or not, I think often what the result is of our complicated feelings about this kind of prayer is that we don't pray at all. As I think she did not pray for a while when she started to wonder, what's the point? And I think there is quite a lot of point, even if we are pretty sure that there is no great genie who is going to answer our prayers, or that if there is a great creator and guide of this universe, they're not necessarily going to interfere in our cells, our relationships, our war-torn countries in order to make things come out better. Even with all of that grief, there are certain needs that we have that prayer can still fill. A need for comfort, for connection, for, as Gandhi said, expressing our longing. Just the longing, I wish that you could be healed. I wish I could fix your broken heart. As he also said, expressing our weakness, just admitting, he said every day, some people do it many times a day, let us do it at least once a week, admitting our weakness, say, I don't know what to do. To have that practice of saying, I don't know, I have hit my limit. Help, help. Now, I think that these things are important. And that prayer, if we understand it in a more broad and gentle way, can meet these needs. And I'm laughing at myself for quoting a Madeleine L'Engle book 2 weeks in a row. This time I'm quoting from a book called A Ring of Endless Light, where the family she's writing about, this is fiction, the family she's writing about is struggling. People they know have died or are dying. And they're generally people of faith. And their faith is tested right now. So as they're talking about the terrible things that are happening and what is the whole point of praying, the mother says to one of the children, prayer was never meant to be magic. And the child says, sulkily and angrily and really understandably, then what good is it? And the mother says, it's an act of love. When we hold one another in that silence, it is an act of love. We are making room in our hearts for love for one another. And that, I believe, does make a difference. We need a practice of reminding ourselves of that love, of that connection, of the need between us, and the fact that we don't know what to do for ourselves, for the people we love, for the people who have spoken of heartache and loss and grief and fear right there in our service. As Abraham Joshua Heschel said, it's not that prayer is going to rebuild a ruined city. But maybe if we take the time, if we have a practice of saying, my city needs help, then we will have the strength and the resolution to do something about it. Maybe it can't mend a wall, but we could feel our spirits mending by just saying, I long to be able to help. And then reaching out in some way. It's about a practice that will give us the strength to act as Jacob and Esperanza acted under the impression that they were giving something to God, a God they weren't even sure they believed in. And they couldn't understand why the bread disappeared, but they were just going to carry on. A strength to act. The Laudamos Te that we just heard just before the sermon, that's music, Vivaldi helping to express this sense of wonder and praise. And when we hear it, do we not also feel an increased sense of wonder, how good it is to be alive in this world with that beautiful music? It gives us the energy, prayer catching on from soul to soul, if you will. And that song that we sang at the beginning, that old song, Down in the Valley, in the depths of enslavement, people prayed that song. They knew as well as people can possibly know that a prayer does not mean your troubles vanish, that God just sends down a bolt and fixes everything for you. They knew that. Maybe the prayer was their way of having strength to get through this situation when they did not know where the help was going to come from. Jacob and Esperanza baked bread because it was what they could do. And I'm with the rabbi. You don't need a miracle to feed your family to come from God if the people around you are offering you bread. I like to think, and I'm quite sure, even though the story ends where I ended it, that they went on baking bread for the people in their community who were hungry. Just as Pablo said, I don't need this anymore. Can I pass the gift along? Jacob and Esperanza had learned that they were doing the work that made people's prayers come true. That Pablo had prayed for help and he received it. Thanks to them. This is what we do when we come together. People speak their vulnerabilities, their fears, their illnesses, their griefs, their worries. And they come bringing them silently as well. And with this time, our pastoral prayers, our caring and sharing, we are saying, I also don't know what to do. I admit my weakness. I wish I could just fix everything for you. I don't know how to do that. I don't think it's possible. But here are some things I can do. I can reach out with a card or a call. I can go by after the service and just make eye contact or put a hand on a shoulder if that's welcome and say, I'm sorry. Because we know that really helps. It doesn't make it all go away. We are not magic genies, but it helps. It's the miracle that we can work. The rabbi is right. We can't see the works of God's hands if there is a God who is working works with God's hands, but we have the works of our own hands. And although that can't fix everything, it's as miraculous as life gets. Friends, let's be miracle workers. We create this space together when we gather, not out of the wood and glass that are around me right now, and not even out of the electricity and binary signals that bring our images to one another, but out of our presence, however we gather, wherever we are today. We have chosen to be together, hoping that together and knowing that together we can do so much more than we could do alone, to make our lives all that we dream of, to make our world into the one that we hope to see one day. So if you are moved by gratitude for this ability to gather together and wish to sustain this community at this moment, the community that we're creating and that is helping to create us, please give whatever financial resources you can as we give and receive our offering. Your order of service gives a QR code and a link and also information on how to give text to give via Give Lively. Let's join in as Bruce leads us in singing What Wondrous Love.
What wondrous love is this, O my soul, O my soul? What wondrous love is this, O my soul? What wondrous love is this that brings my heart such bliss and takes away the pain of my soul, and takes away the pain of my soul? When I was sinking down, sinking down, sinking down, when I was sinking down, sinking down, when I was sinking down beneath my sorrow's crown, friends to me gathered round, oh my soul, friends to me gathered round, oh my soul. To love and to all friends I will sing, I will sing. To love and to all friends I will sing. To love and to all friends who pain and sorrow mend, with thanks unto the end I will sing, I will sing. With thanks unto the end I will sing.
To love and to all friends, may they go with us, a warmth in the heart as we go from this place. They are persistent, love and friendship. We give thanks unto the end. Please stay after the benediction for our virtual coffee time. You will be invited to small group conversations in our breakout rooms, or if you'd like to hear others' thoughts on prayer, you can stay here in the main room with me where we'll be sharing our thoughts on the topic. Now, will you please unmute yourself and turn on your video if you're comfortable with that, and touch hands virtually like this, or put a hand on your heart and a hand out to others, and we'll say our benediction together. Go out into the world in peace. Be of good courage. Hold fast to what is good. Return no one evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Rejoice in beauty. Speak love with word and deed. Honor all beings. Blessings.